us today.
Lori, I can see that Brenda, Andy, and Abby can all hear you. So it looks like our audio is working.
Good, good. Thank you. Okay, we're going to give about 1 more minute, and then those who join us can join us as we get started. Sean, welcome.
Thanks, I'm here. I'm just listening.
Okay. Glad to have you. So
if you go to that.
Okay. I like when everybody has their camera on. I get to know names and faces. Okay. Well, I want to honor everybody's time who is joining us today, and I know there will be others who will be joining us here shortly, but I do want to go ahead and get started with today's edition of the HomeNE webinar. So let me just say good day to all of you and welcome to today's online gathering. I'm Lori Ferguson. I'm with South Central Economic Development District, and I'm facilitating today's conversation. Today, as of 10 o'clock, we had 72 registered participants gathered from across the state to hear Nicole Sedlacek of Nebraska Public Power District and Sunny Korkel of the KBR Leadership Academy talk to us about today's topic, housing development requires leadership and how do we get there. Sherry has put up some stats. This is our 12th housing-focused webinar. We started in February of 2018. We've had 3 in-person gatherings, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that later on. Altogether, we've had over 210 registered participants, and 90 communities across the state have been participants in one way or another, or represented, excuse me, in the HomeNE events. Today, as I said, 72 are registered, and for the first time, we have 15 new registrations for February. So exciting. The network continues to grow, and that's exciting. Today's agenda will be, we'll be hearing from Nicole Sedlacek, as I said, of NPPD, as well as Sunny Korkel of KBR Leadership Academy, followed by questions for our speakers. So please be writing down your questions and thoughts. I know for me, if I don't write it down, I forget, and then I wish I would have asked. And then we'll wrap up with some group discussion and final thoughts. So look forward to our time together. So at this point, here's the map, excuse me, that shows all the communities in Nebraska that have participated to date, either in a webinar or a gathering. So we don't show our friends in South Dakota on this map, but we have had some as well participate from South Dakota. So at this point, Levi, I'm going to turn it over to you. Levi Adam is the Deputy Director here at South Central Economic Development District. Sharon Heffley is away and enjoying some family time this week. So with that, Levi, take it away.
All right. Hi. As Lori said, my name is Levi, and welcome to the February edition of the HomeNE 2019 HomeNE webinar series. The HomeNE program is a learning network geared toward housing and rural communities, providing face-to-face and online opportunities to foster interaction, engagement, and skill building for local leaders and conveners. HomeNE was established in 2017 and consists of monthly webinars and 2 events, and we call them gatherings, and 2 of those go per year. South Central Economic Development District acts as the lead agent. Each HomeNE event is intended to empower you, the participant, to immediately apply what you learn. Today, we will be hearing from 2 individuals experienced in developing leadership in their communities. First, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Nicole Sedlacek. She is an economic development consultant for NPPD, and as a consultant, she works to help prepare communities and rural areas for opportunities for economic development by retaining and recruiting jobs, capital investment, and electric load. Nicole joined the Economic Development team at NPPD in 2016. Prior to NPPD, Nicole served as the Executive Director for Holt County Economic Development for 9 years in O'Neill. She's a certified economic developer and past president of NEDA, which is Nebraska Economic Developers Association, and she currently serves as they live in O'Neill and have 2 daughters, Allie and Emma. Welcome, Nicole.
All right, thank you, Levi, for the introduction, and thank you for allowing me to be a speaker today for this HomeNE learning webinar. So when I was at the local level of Holt County Economic Development, where I was there for 9 years, building upon human capital was a major priority and focus. And local leadership in a community is really the foundation for all successful communities. And so that was why it was really a really big focus and priority for us at Holt County Economic Development. One of my first meetings that I attended in my new role as director at Holt County Economic Development, I was handed this book, or handed a document called the 10 Commandments of Community Leadership. This tool has been really one of my favorites, as it really contained a framework of ideas and simple tools that we can use to strengthen our communities today, to really help build upon a solid foundation for innovation and growth. Now, this particular resource actually came from the state of Washington, but it's something that is applicable to every one of our communities here in Nebraska and all across the Midwest and the United States. Again, I truly feel that these are a good set of principles for helping create successful communities. So I'm just going to hit on just half of these commandments, as they're called, but at the end of my presentation, there's a link to the actual full documents that you can go access all of them and reference back to. I'm just going to kind of hit on some of the highlights in these in kind of a very high level. Each of these commandments, so to speak, contains a list of suggestions with some important distinctions. Really, the first, that they're only filled with shouts. So as community leaders, our job is really to be proactive and positive. We want to focus on what can be done and not on what can't be done. So when we take this approach to community development, it's more motivating, it's encouraging, and really inspiring for not only ourselves, but for our fellow residents and citizens in our community and other leaders. The second piece of that is that youth really play an important role in every one of these. So a community's future is really shaped by the attitude of its citizens, especially our young people. And so the youth of today will be the leaders of our community tomorrow. And are we creating communities that these future generations really want to return to? So this first one, thou shalt create a vision for the future. So this one I like to, just really point out, break out of routine thinking. So, that thinking of we've always done it this way, or we tried that 10 years ago, or this is how we do it. Really kind of break out of that routine thinking in your community. Building upon community assets is really important. So when we focus on our community strengths and we really build upon those, we have way more opportunity for success. It's important to listen to different voices, but what are those voices in your community? Do you have different segments of people at the table represented? Not only is it important to have business and industry and government and education represented, but who are those missing segments that you need to also have included to hear their voices and what their vision is for the future of the community? And again, you'll kind of hear this reoccurring theme about encouraging youth to participate. Are you providing opportunities where youth feel that it's safe to offer their input and suggestions? And again, youth can be anything from, grade school, high school, even your young professionals who are living in your community. Do they feel safe and welcome to provide that input and suggestion as to what their community can look like. I've seen a lot of examples of this over time. You know, it could be as simple as reaching out to existing youth organizations like your 4-H and FFA and FCCLA organizations to seek input from that youth group. But maybe it's a completely different target audience of youth, and you want to take a different approach. And maybe what we did for a few years in O'Neill is we created kind of a youth steering committee that was established that youth who wanted to be involved in community economic development related activities, they met on Sunday afternoons and worked on different projects. Kids are busy, so we did see that kind of run its course, but there's a number of different ways that you can involve youth in your community, and there's some great examples across the state. The next one is developing a strategic plan. So Lewis Carroll said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. But I think that road can be rather bumpy and dangerous and long if we don't have that roadmap in front of us. And that's exactly what a strategic plan will do for your community. So it's important to involve participation from everyone within the community and really helping connect that community vision and what people want to see in the community to a strategic plan. Again, when working on the strategic plan, it's important to build upon a community's assets and strengths. And that's not only, you know, just from a, you know, what do we have existing from a physical assets, but also even taking a look at it from a human capital perspective and what you have for people in the community. Also with your strategic plan, it's important to make sure goals in your plan are SMART goals. So when we're kind of connecting our vision for where we want to take our community into that strategic plan, you know, really making those goals so that they're specific and measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound to really kind of keep everybody focused and moving and rowing the same direction on the boat and for your community. And while the creation of the strategic plan is important, really communicating out progress with your partners and your stakeholders is just as important. It keeps them engaged, it keeps them updated, and it helps really keep that strategic plan and actual plan for your community. Oh, my slides are moving and I don't know what I'm doing here. Okay. Now I can't go back, but okay. The next one that I wanted to do was also kind of talking about seeking public-private partnerships. So this suggestion is really one of the most fun for me to talk about. This is where all sorts of the magical things, or if you don't believe in magic, this is where the positive things can happen. You'll hear from Sunny Corkle in a little bit, just right after me, about what happened in her region when they took this approach. But seeking out partnerships and looking for, you know, working with other entities to realize the importance of working together as a region can help parties that might not always have the same ideas or approach really start focusing on mutual vision and common goals. That was really what helped us at Holt County Economic Development, with us starting to work together as a county regionally. It was actually our countywide leadership program that really initially started with 2 communities, and then a 3rd community came on board, and then our leadership program is actually older than the Holt County Economic Development Office. So when you start seeking partnership goals and realize how important it is to work together, that's when you can start working together on common goals. All right, Sherry, I must be having some difficulty moving my slide. The next one is thou shalt promote respect. Now this one sounds like something we've all learned in kindergarten, but the more I work with people, the more I become just more amazed by how differently we all see things. We all bring our own different perspectives and experiences to the table. And when we can really embrace those differences and listen to each other and respect one another, we'll find out more often than not that a lot of the same goals and visions for our communities, we just have different ideas on maybe how to get there. All right. The next one is developing future leaders. Again, kind of the focus of today's webinar. But there are a variety of ways that we can work to develop future leaders within our community. Maybe it's creating a specific leadership program within your community or region that meets once a month or even on a quarterly basis. Maybe it's working with existing organizations that are already within your community to help grow those existing volunteers into larger roles. I don't know how many that are participating on the webinar, but I always really kind of promote Rotary clubs as an excellent example of this. So if anyone is a Rotarian, you might know that they have this amazing kind of leadership succession planning as they work with, you know, the president-elect and president-elect nominee and at the district level and local level. So it's helping kind of build and groom, you know, existing volunteers into future leadership positions. Again, thinking diversity again with growing future leaders. Is your community and its leaders a good representation of who makes up your community? So there's great opportunities to partner with a number of entities to help develop future leaders within your community. So the next slide just kind of shows the remaining ones, and there is a link to the full document that you can access and see more of the suggestions on that. But really there are some key components to a leadership program. And so it's important that if you're wanting to take a look at a community leadership program, that you can really work to identify those issues within your community that help identify the why someone would want to participate. Sherry, if you want to go to the next slide. So when we say leadership program, of course, you know, it really implies leadership development. But how do you build a leadership program that helps participants gain and sharpen their own leadership potential, but also helps them see the issues impacting their community and really help them see where they can make a difference? I've participated at the local level with our Hometown Leadership Institute in Holt County, and I've also been a participant in the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce's Leadership Nebraska program. And the one aspect of Leadership Nebraska program that was probably my favorite is, you know, most leadership programs that we see, you know, we kind of take a month and we focus on a particular area, or we hear different speakers around a specific topic. But with Leadership Nebraska, we had a particular session each month that was, I think it was called Leadership in Action, but it featured, you know, a speaker who really kind of gave this kind of inspiring, motivational speaker about leadership in their life and in their career and what it meant for them. And so it was a way for us to hear kind of what helped them, but then also how they could, you know, how you could build upon your own leadership success. Our Hometown Leadership Institute program in Holt County, it really has evolved over time. The first few years we started out, we would spend kind of an all-day long session on, you know, how to be a servant leader. And really, it was all focused on leadership. But then we kind of took a different direction and really kind of wanted to identify issues within the county where we could kind of promote and kind of looking at it as an onion and peeling away the layers of, okay, here's what healthcare looks like in Holt County. Here's what education looks like. Here's what business and industry and entrepreneurship, and really kind of helping educate our residents on those particular areas to help create and inspire these new future leaders that would want to become involved within the community. If you want to go to the next slide, Sherry. So it's important to really track and monitor the return on investment that a local leadership program can have on a community. Again, the benefits can be very positive and impactful when you're helping give local residents more information on issues impacting their community and really help and sharpen their own personal leadership development skills. You're really giving them the confidence and the knowledge to show them where they're needed. And those benefits that are really kind of tangible are, you're increasing your pool of volunteers within your community. You're strengthening relationships with other local community-based organizations because you're all working together to try to get more people into this program or making suggestions. Again, you're informing and educating residents. You're creating this pipeline for emerging leaders. And I also like to say that you're creating kind of these ambassadors for your region, that here you're spending a lot of time investing in these people and helping kind of showcase them what's all offered in your region. And so they become kind of your ambassadors and your spokespeople for your community and region. So I guess as I close out, I just want to state that there's always room in our communities for more community leaders. We always want to work to make the table bigger and pull up more chairs if you need to. The model of one leader at the top with everyone else at the bottom just doesn't work for our communities. And one or two leaders can't possibly solve all of the complex problems that our communities have. So with more community leaders, all of our communities will do better. The more people become leaders, the more problems we'll solve and creative solutions we create for our Nebraska communities. So again, it just takes a troop of skilled leaders to do this. I think that wraps up mine, and I think I'll send it back to Levi, I think.
Okay, thanks, Nicole, for that presentation, and we'll make sure to let participants ask questions later in the webinar. So we'll move on to our second speaker, Sunny Corkle. It's my pleasure to introduce her to you today. She grew up along the Front Range of northern Colorado, and in 2007, Sunny and her husband took the leap of faith to come to the Sandhills of Nebraska, where her husband helps with the family cow-calf operation located in Kippahaw County. Sunny was a stay-at-home mother of 3 until she re-entered the workforce in 2013. She currently works as general manager for a hotel and regional coordinator for Northeast Community College. In 2016, she took on the lead role of facilitating the development and creation of the Tri-County KBR Leadership Academy. Sunny has found her passion for protecting and promoting the rural communities that she now calls home. Sunny, over to you.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Levi. And I'm very honored to have you guys include me in this, because I feel like we have a very unique model for you all to hear about and see that it is completely doable. It was something that we didn't know what's going to happen, but we figured we needed to make something happen. So the creation of the KBR Leadership Academy, I'm going to give you a little bit of history. Northeast Community College was looking at reestablishing their presence out here in Kippahaw, Brown, and Rock County. They needed to kind of find out what they were needing, whether it was classes or anything else that their community was looking for. And they sent this guy out here to do some investigative work. This is Jim McCarville, and he's from the Center for Enterprise. And he began meeting with all of our area leaders and businesses and discovered they all had an underlying need, which was leadership. Shortly thereafter, I was brought on with Northeast Community College, and Jim and I recruited this list of individuals from each of these 3 counties. These people were instrumental in the fact that they are open-minded, that they were willing to do what was best for the area, and it was the first time that we could tear down the silos and start blurring the county lines. I don't know if others are from these rural areas. There tends to be a little competition between the communities, which isn't a bad thing, but there's also a realization that we need each other to survive. So In December 22nd of 2016, we met up in Springview, and we met with Anders Olson, who is at that time with the Nebraska Community Foundation. And this is a lot of notes, and I'd be more than happy to share this presentation, but that first night, it was a very lengthy meeting, but what we decided was we broke into our individual communities and identified each of our strengths and weaknesses. And at that time, we realized we all had the same problem. And we were all in need of people stepping up. We were all exhausted, and we were looking for the next group of people to take over. You know, that whole 80-20 rule happens. And so we realized at that moment, in order for this to happen, we could do our own programs if we wanted to. However, there was lack of resources. Maybe it would be your volunteers, your speakers, finances, whatever it might be the case. And we realized we as a region could combine our efforts together and we could make something happen. So at the end of this long night, we created our SMART goals, Nicole. So the first one is that we were going to see it through year one. We had to have a time frame. We wanted to see something happen. We knew that this was what was going to happen. So they're very basic goals, but we knew that there needed to be some sort of future to this. So we met for a second time and we developed our mission statement. And this was huge for us because we really needed to identify what we were wanting to do. And we are all trying to protect what we have out here. We love the area that we're part of, and we want to promote it and have people come here. We want them to enjoy it as much as we do. But if we are not putting in the effort, then things are going to go away. So we started a huge board, and we started throwing out numerous topics, and we came down to these 9 topics. We felt like all 9 of these, which I feel like apply to most communities, that they're important topics within all of them. But these were the ones that stuck out to us the most, and that we were going to have each of these topics. So as a 3-county effort, we knew we needed 9 because it was divisible by 3. That way each county would have the opportunity to present 3 topics. So we have 9 sessions starting in August, and we will end in April. And Kippahaw will have a chance to do 3 topics, Rock does, and then also Brown. Those topics are also rotating. We feel that that's only fair to keep the ground even for everybody. So agriculture obviously ties to all 3 of our communities, and not one community can be an expert on that, so we rotate those topics between those communities. Healthcare is probably the only one. It only does stay between Rock and Brown because they each have their own hospitals. Kippahaw does not have its own hospital, so it is not able to contribute. So those were the 9 topics. And then the next thing that we had to do is we had to start finding the right candidates. So this first year, we were kind of on a time crunch of trying to put together a program, but also find these students. And so we had an agreement that there would be 5 from each county. And as you can see, there's not 15 students there. We tried to recruit as many as we could, but each county has 5 seats. So therefore, it is an equal playing field for all. 5 from Brown, 5 from Rock, and 5 from Kippahaw. So this was our first class. They were all handpicked, and we were really trying to look for those people that we knew had the talents to become great leaders that just hadn't stepped in the role. And after meeting with them and asking them to do this, they were more than happy to do it because for the first time they were asked to do something. And a lot of times we get stuck into that rut of being in our own social circle and we're like, well, who could we pick to fill this role on this committee? And you just look at your friends amongst the table. And these people were like, I've always wanted to be involved. I just didn't know how. And so for right then, we learned the most important lesson is that you are never allowed to say no for somebody. And we know that we have to continue to ask everybody and let them say no, but you can't make that decision for them. This is our 2nd year class. It's been fun for all of our classes to learn their personalities. We do Strengths Finders is one of the programs that we do to learn their personalities. And my 2nd year class was a robust group of individuals. They were a lot of fun, and they created a lot of challenges for us, and they really challenged us to become a better program. And then we're currently in our 3rd year, and this is our class currently this year. We have not, the last 2 years, had to recruit. They have come to us now looking to apply. So we always start off, the very first session we do is on leadership skills. So we have used Nicole Solacek to do strengths finders because we think it's very important for them to identify who they are and to know how they are viewed in a group or how they work in a group. And we have also done DISC training with Julie Yonkin. And both of them, I think, give the students insights of their interactions with others, because if you don't know how you're interacting with others, you'll definitely find out how they perceive you will definitely make challenges for you in the future. So we firmly believe in development of the self through soft skill trainings to become more effective. We always have agriculture. And these slides, I know they're a little busy. In my PowerPoint presentation, they kind of pop up slowly, but as a slide, they just kind of show busy. But we're just trying to give you a snapshot of what they do. And these are all quotes from our students. We use Google Drive, and we send a Google feedback form at the end of each of our sessions. And that helps us as an advisory board create the next sessions and know how to cater to the individuals. And so these are some of their quotes on what they've given to us. They're all positive. They do give us negative feedback where we learn to adjust. But I do want you guys to know that we do this. That's how we make our program. We utilize Zoom a lot because in rural areas, it's hard to get speakers to come. And in the lower left-hand corner, Ryan Weston, he is actually a native of Kippahaw, but he is head of the Sugarcane League in Washington, D.C. And he has spoken to our group about advocating at a national level. And it's been very impactful for our students to learn that you really do have a voice. Government, I always tell everyone this is my favorite session because this is the one where you think your voice doesn't matter, but it really does. And it's important for you to reach out and speak to people. So it made us very knowledgeable to learn that you can always swing big. And the first year, Wade Alberts, one of our advisory board members, told us we need to try and get the biggest speaker possible. And he started throwing out some names like Warren Buffett. I'm like, we would never be able to afford him. And he said, what about Chuck Hagel? And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, you're talking big people. Well, on a random day, Chuck Hagel came and stayed at the hotel that I manage here in town. And I went up to him and said, would you be willing to speak to our group? This is kind of what we're doing. And he said, by all means. So he Skyped in with us and spoke to our group and really told them, you need to get out and get involved. And it was just great. So I always encourage you, swing big, try and find those big speakers. But also the most impactful speakers for our students have been our local leaders, for them to get acquainted. And when we do our government session, they get to meet with representatives from each of their counties as county commissioners, their clerks, their assessors. And it's very important for them to get to know them on a personal level and ask those questions they've always had, because you're not going to go out of your way to do that. Healthcare. We are fortunate enough in our tiny area to have 2 hospitals, and they offer a number of amenities, and we're very blessed. And so we feel it's important for people to get to know what your own resources are in their towns. So we do take, in all of our leadership sessions, take them on tours so that they're able to see what is being offered. Natural resources. Definitely a topic that nobody thought would be concerning to them, but water is definitely a very fragile resource for us, and something that you need to be aware of and know what your rights are and how to protect what we have. Education. Jerry Ehlers is a former superintendent, and he's on our advisory board. And he has told me, he goes, well, education is the one area that you're all experts in. You've all either gone through it, or you also have children that are going through it currently. And so you have an opinion about education, whether you believe it or not. And you do. When you start talking to your school superintendents, to the school land funds, to athletic directors, you really do find out what your opinions are, and you want to get some questions answered. And this is an opportunity for our students to do that. We did get to meet with Matt Bloomstead from the Department of Ed. We really try and connect them to every resource within each of these topics. Economic development. So this is, economic development is such a broad topic, and we've debated on how to handle this topic because all of these topics relate to economic development. And so we really are trying to encourage our students to know what's available to them. So one of the big things that continuously happens in all of these conversations is we have lack of housing and we have lack of good paying jobs. So it's the whole chicken and egg debate. And so we challenge these students to try and come up with solutions for it. We've met with John Madsen, which I know has spoken for you guys before, and Kristen Olson here also speak to him about housing projects. We've had Anders Olson come back again and do some community analysis on what their strengths are and how identifying some problems and maybe some areas to make our communities more desirable to get people to come here and stay. It's been, this topic we have realized is embedded in all of our topics, and so now it is tied in heavily into all of our topics. Entrepreneurship. Definitely encouraging new businesses to our communities. We need to try and survive. That's the only way we're going to do it. And volunteerism. In our communities, it was shocking for us to learn that out of the 3 little communities we have over 125 programs that are running. And those programs cannot run without volunteers. And so we have explained to our students numerous times, you're going to go through all of this and you're going to see that we're bleeding at all these areas. But the most favorite thing that I have ever heard from is at the bottom. It says, find and follow your passion. And that is what our ultimate goal is in throughout this whole program. We end every year on volunteerism because we just want them to find out what their passion is and make them invested into it and try making the changes and get involved themselves. Now, in the impact of our students, we do allow for in the creation of our program, after you graduate, you have the ability to come on as an advisory board member and help us shape future classes. We just feel this is a great way for them to give back, but they also are able to guide us and tell us areas that we might be missing. But this is kind of more impact statements from all of them. I definitely love the bottom one, which is we all have opportunities and we just need to be brave. So none of this would have been possible, definitely from Northeast Community College. When I got hired on as a regional coordinator, they said, you and Jim need to work on this together. And so they have definitely been a blessing and a resource for us. And then also our North Central Development Center has also been beneficial to us in helping as a resource for our program. But why should you develop a leadership program? So I have to borrow this from Dr. Tomfield from the Engler Foundation at UNL. He gave a presentation to our group one time and he threw up this picture of the Calvary. And he goes, all right, so what can you tell me about this picture? And they're like, well, it's the Calvary. And he said, okay, but they're not coming. And this is why we have to develop a leadership program, because the only way that we're going to survive is if we are developing our own Calvary to fight for our own areas and to make people want to step on and take these roles and protect our areas. And so why are we developing it? Because they're not coming, it's just us. So that's all I have. And if you guys have any questions about our program, we'd be happy to answer anything.
Okay, thank you both to Nicole and Sunny. I'm pondering that last slide, Sunny, that you shared. I was kind of like you, it's the Calvary, so what's so big, what's the big deal? But we definitely find that true to be in the rural communities, that we have to do something to save ourselves. So good stuff for all of us to hear today. In our chat box, I was asking some of the attendees who had leadership programs, and we had 5 identified: Dakota County, York, McCook, Columbus, and Lincoln County. So we're seeing it around the state. So thanks for your leadership as well. So at this point, we're going to open it up for some questions of our speakers. If you have a question for either Nicole or Sunny, or perhaps both of them, go ahead and open up your microphone or use your chat box. State your name and your question. We want to give everybody a chance to be heard that might have a question. If you have more than one question, feel free to ask it and then enter your remaining questions in the chat box, and we'll be monitoring that. So go ahead and open your microphones and tell us your name, where you're from and your question. I did have a couple questions here for our speakers. Oh, Andy is asking or stating, a complaint I hear from some community leadership programs is there isn't a lot of leadership development, but it is mostly an area awareness program. Two questions I had is, number one, how do you find and recruit people who aren't already involved in multiple things to participate? And at the end of the program, how do you connect them to local organizations to volunteer, lead, and serve on boards? Who wants to tackle that?
I'm going to attempt to answer your question. So one of the ways that at the end of our program of how we connect them to our local organizations is we share our spreadsheet of participants to all three communities. We believe in, when you're creating this leadership program, that you are actually hopefully developing another resource and another body for you to be able to use within your organization. So since in doing that, we've had our city officials use them to recruit to be on committees for like LB 840 funding. They will look at that list and they will pick names off of there and they're like, hey, I know where that guy works at, or I know that person, and they will go reach out to that person and say, hey, I know you were in the KBR leadership program, would you be willing to step on? We've had almost every single one of our participants take on an additional role since they started this because we're sharing that information. We think we're creating a resource. I would agree that sometimes it is an awareness program, and it is a lot where you're just becoming very well overwhelmed with everything that's going on. But how do you find those people? I would, one, let them come to you, but two, I would reach out to your local businesses. There are some people in your businesses that you have identified as potential leaders. And I know that even within the businesses that I manage, that I look at it, I'm like, that person, they have it. I know they have it. And how am I going to encourage it? So we reach out to businesses also and say, this is a program we have. Do you have anyone in mind? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But that's another way that we reach out to them. Nicole, do you have anything that you want to add?
I would really second that too. So from the Holt County level, when I was there, and this is still the case, that we have a number of businesses and organizations too that they really feel that, okay, we can't, necessarily always send all of our staff to a training outside of the area, but this is one that's affordable. It's manageable from a monthly perspective, and it's something that they can get to very reasonably. And so we've had a number of our existing businesses and organizations really kind of step forward and say, we're going to make sure that all of our people go through this each year when it's offered. So it's really finding those business champions that really believe in what you're doing, but they also see it as a way to help build their own people too within their organization. And we have heard that complaint too, that it's more of an area awareness program. But I think even if you can kind of schedule a little bit of time away in the agenda to call it some sort of leadership, or Sunny, I know you guys have a wonderful library. I love to read, and so you guys have this wonderful library of resources for your participants, and you've even done a book thing. So kind of even building in some homework. Again, that's the learner in me, but building in some things that that aren't just that one day a month, but something that they can continue working on in between their sessions is another way to add to that.
Nicole, I totally forgot that we make our students do homework, because when part of the education session prior to coming to it, they are encouraged to go to a school board meeting. And a lot of times the feedback we get is, I would never have gone to one if you had not challenged me to go to one. And I think it's important, if you're encouraging them to get out and get involved, then they're starting to find that passion in what they do care about. So yeah, I forget that we do those things sometimes.
Yeah.
Nicole, this is Sherry, and something you said triggered in my mind. You emphasized the youth several times, and I don't know a lot about the program other than I had a daughter that was in the inaugural class. Something that the PCDC, Phelps County Development Corp, with the Chamber and the Extension, they did Youth Engaged in Leading Phelps County, and started a program where they're bringing in the school students. Not necessarily that the kids are going to stay here, but it gives the kids leadership skills, but also it is building an awareness of the county so kids would maybe come back.
Great resource, and there's some really great examples with the extension and with some other resources out there that really have that youth focus. I know we at Holt County, we did have youth were involved in our Leadership Institute. They could apply, and then we made some changes so that, unfortunately, because of the time of the year, it involved some of the summer months, and so we kind of lost the student participation, and because of student demands and everything, we kind of lost that. But I think there are still ways to work with extension, to work with university. There's a number of different ways and programs out there to help you engage and work specifically with that youth component.
Okay, thank you. I have a question here from Amanda. She says, I may have missed this, but do you have community projects associated with your programs? We divide into groups and plan community projects in all of the towns throughout Dakota County. For example, a flagpole at the Legion Hall, trail markers around a lake, veterans memorial benches, dog park, creation of art fest, etc. So do you have any community projects associated with your leadership programs?
Go ahead, Nicole.
Okay, well, I'll just, and again, I feel bad keep bringing up Holt County Economic Development because I'm not there anymore, but in the beginning, we did have a project, every year that sort of lost its focus and its momentum and energy. But one project that really stands out is they did an alumni outreach survey. And so they reached out to alumni from Holt County with all of the different schools and just asked them a series of questions to see, what would it take to bring you back to your hometown, and gathered some kind of data and feedback. But then it also provided an opportunity for the Economic Development Office to have a database of information of people who wanted to return if just that right opportunity came about. And so that was a nice segue from the leadership program to economic development to try to help it fill jobs within the community. They've done some other projects such as raising or collecting items for our domestic violence shelter. And then another one is they held a small business resource fair. They felt like there were a number of different tons of different providers out there for people who want to start their own business, but they wanted to kind of create this resource event where everybody could come in and learn, kind of go around the room and hear different speakers. So there's been a number of different projects that have come out of the Hometown Leadership Program in Holt County.
For our area, we did not push it. The first year, the first class, they decided they were going to do a community project in each of the communities. Great in theory. It's kind of hard when you're looking at 3 different counties. And we ran into some challenges, and we've decided that we are not going to push that topic. And so we've made our focus now not on a community project, but we have a networking event. So we just had our meet and greet event where we invite alumni and current participants plus foundation members, businesses that support us. And it's just a networking evening where they can get together and really get a chance to reconnect and bounce ideas off of each other. And I mean, I think that is going to be more of a community project, because a great example from that night is I had 2 school board members from 2 different counties begin talking about collaboration between their schools on how to create class opportunities for both schools. We all have resources, and how are we going to utilize those resources within the area? And they went back and talked to their individual school boards, and there's a meeting set up for the 3 schools to get together and discuss. So I guess we are not focusing on community projects. It's just very hard. You're looking at funding and everything else. So we do not do community projects.
Okay. Thank you, Sunny and Nicole. I have a question here. What venues did you find effective for your public/private partnerships?
The area foundations, for sure. We went to all of them and asked, would you guys support us for scholarships? Definitely our program has a cost associated with it, and not everyone has a business sponsoring it. And so we had some individuals that were your stay-at-home moms that wanted to do this. They wanted to get involved, but they didn't necessarily have the funds to pay for the program. So we reached out to our area foundations, and all 3 of them came back overwhelmingly, yes, we'd be more than happy to help you guys out. So they were a huge partnership for us. Also, the NCDC, definitely the college for us as well.
Okay, thank you. Nicole, do you have anything to add to that you maybe saw as you were at Holt County?
Again, the community foundations, our area is very strong with the Nebraska Community Foundation and local affiliated funds. And a lot of them, kind of have leadership as part of their vision and what they're wanting to strategically grant to. And so that's been a great resource from us from not only a funding perspective, but also helping from that planning, visioning perspective as well.
Okay, thank you. We have good conversation going on in the chat box. I asked our attendees today that as they listened to Nicole and Sunny, what was maybe 1 or 2 items that jumped out at them today. And both Levi and I kind of picked up on what Sunny said, never say no for someone else. And that's true. We need to let them make that decision. Anyway, any other questions for our speakers before we begin to wrap up?
Lori, did you see John Matson? He says, nice job, ladies. Keep up the good work. I'm curious if any groups around the state have figured out an effective way to reconnect with former participants or provide opportunities for them to get together again following their year to follow up with each other. Sunny, Nicole, either one of you have something for John?
Well, John, that's what we just did. Glad to see you're on here because John is a great resource for us also. We've used him before. We just did that meet and greet event, and what a great opportunity to bring all those alumni and former participants in. And so they enjoyed the evening as well. I told them that they had during all of our sessions, they always begged us for more time to socialize. And at the beginning of the evening, I said, okay, you guys now have time to socialize. Here's your opportunity. But then it was fun to see the other classes start to interact also. So I think having an annual event like that where they can all get back together as a group has been very effective for us.
Thanks for that, Sunny. I appreciate that. I always feel bad when I miss the annual graduation, because that way, if I get to the graduation, I know who the participants were the past year, and it gives me a chance to reach out to them and connect with them a little bit too, and find out what they got out of it. And it's always nice to see alumni from the leadership program attend those graduation ceremonies too, to kind of get a chance to kind of feel like they're still connected to it.
You're right. And John, because we do, at our graduation, we invite all of our alumni. They're part of the, on the invitation list to come to the graduation, because I think it's important for them to reconnect with what happened for when they went through and what their takeaways were, and to be re-inspired with those that just are going through it as well. So
yeah, that's a great idea. And I like the idea that you take some of the past participants, put them on your advisory board too.
It's actually very helpful to us, because to be a participant is different than the creator. So they bring a different perspective.
Yeah, thanks again.
Yes, thanks,
John, we've got some people in the chat box sharing what they're doing. I'll just share those with the group today. Amanda says that the Dakota County leadership had a project last year of a creation of a DCL alum. They have created a Facebook page and are starting to host events. And then Abby is in a leadership group in Columbus, I believe. She said for their alumni, their class this year wants to start a Facebook page for Leadership Columbus alumni. And then Andy and McCook said that their program hosted a leadership alumni banquet a couple years ago, and it gave people from the last 20 years a chance to connect with their class and see who was in other classes. They also had Craig Schroeder come out and speak, and it was a good night with about 60 people in attendance. So all good ideas. So yeah.
Those are great. Thanks for responding to that, because I'll pass some of that along to Darby.
Yeah. Okay, so good conversation today. Leadership is definitely needed. That's something that our rural communities often lack. As one of you said, 20% doing 80% of the work. So time to foster a new generation of leadership. So as we begin to wrap up this afternoon, I know that both Sunny and Nicole have shared their contact information with you, and I just encourage you to reach out to them if you have any more questions for them. So what is one step that you as attendees today have heard that you might take in implementing something? Maybe it's just, I'll leave that up to you. I'm not even going to lead the question with anything. Maybe perhaps some of you don't have a leadership program. Nicole and Sunny have been willing to share today, and I'm sure they would be an additional resource as well. So I'm seeing a nod of affirmation there. But we are nearing the top of the hour, and I want to honor your time that way. But I just wanted to give you kind of I've got a chat box here from Tammy. She said she was in a Leadership Columbus program in 2013, and our program was we would, as a group, select one downtown business, and we would all something and shop there on a specific night to help raise awareness. So just another good idea for a leadership to be active and proactive in their community. So Tammy, thank you for that. So I do want to share with you our spring gathering that's coming up in April. We have finalized the date and the location, and I'm so excited about this. It's going to be held Thursday, April 11th at the Schuyler Public Library in Schuyler. This is a statewide learning network, so we move around the state. This is a little different. We are doing a one-day event, and if you'll notice, one of the topics that will be discussed is tax increment financing. So we just encourage you. It's going to be held from 8:30 to 5. So we will start registration at 8:30. So please consider attending. Mark your calendars for the date and be watching your emails for future information to be coming your way very soon about the spring gathering. So, and then finally, I want to share just a little bit with you about our next webinar coming up on March 21st. And Ben Winchester is the speaker. He will be talking on changing the rural narrative. And Levi, would you care to share a little bit more about Ben?
Sure, yeah. If you haven't heard of him, he's a rural sociologist with the University of Minnesota Extension, and he does a lot of fascinating research on basically on rural America. And so if you haven't heard of him, you Google him or YouTube him. He's done some really neat stuff. But changing the rural narrative is what he's going to be giving us next month.
Okay, thank you. I'm really excited to hear from Ben, and we look forward to having both Ben and all of you join us next month. Today's slides, for those registered for today, those slides will be headed your way, I believe, tomorrow. Yes, Sherry is nodding in the affirmative there. And also a recording of this webinar today will also be available at our website there under the HomeNE tab. So check that out at your convenience too. So with that, are there any last comments or questions from either our speakers or any of our attendees today?
Lori, registration for both the gathering and next month's are live right now on our website. They went live about 2:30.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So while you're rejuvenated and revitalized from today's topic, you may just want to slip over to the skid page and register for one or both of those events. So Sunny, Nicole, thank you so much for your participation, and you shared a lot of great things, and I really appreciate it, as I know all of us do here at SCID. So if no one else has any additional information, thanks. Oh, let me check my chat box here quickly. Okay, some thank yous from some individuals, so I'm passing that on to our speakers as well. So thanks again to everyone for joining us, and with that, have a great rest of your day.